Well, when Gimina and I decided to come back here, I said to her one day, Gimina, what do you think? Should we just sell everything in England and go back to Nicaragua and give it a go? And she just said, yes, Mum, let's go. So that was it. Then everything was on a roll. And I said to Gimina, I would really like to have a dog. Well, I had a dog as a child who was a great company and great comfort to me because I had a very difficult childhood. And Gimina said, well, if you have a dog, I want a horse. So I'm like, well, there's no way I could afford a horse for Gimina in England. No way. I couldn't even really afford riding lessons for her. But I thought probably here we could manage it. So my first ever dog was a beautiful dog called Condor, who I rescued from the trash dump, rubbish dump, as we would say in the UK, in the barrier where I was living in a homestay while we were building the Mariposa. And then I think basically what happened was word went round that I rescued dogs. And by the time I was living at the Mariposa and it was all built and open, I had 5 dogs. And I can remember thinking and indeed saying to somebody, 5 is the limit. And then the 6th one came along and I'm like, what is the big difference between 5 dogs and 6 dogs? Really, there isn't. So it became 6. Well, it's now about 100. And really, when you get to 100, one more really doesn't make any difference. And the dogs are now in different locations. Many of the staff have taken on dogs. Some of them we still help with food or veterinary bills. But many of the staff look after the dogs themselves. And then the horses, the same thing really happened. We rescued the first 3 horses, actually. And to begin with, we had a stable here, just right next to the hotel. And then we bought another piece of land so we could have the stables elsewhere. And now I think we have about 20 rescued horses. And the horses do, both the dogs and the horses do earn their living to some extent. I'm going to defend them on this. The dogs are quite good caretakers, especially at night. And at my house, for example, I don't have any security really at all because the dogs are great. And the horses do a chemotherapy with a disabled children's project. And they also give students rides, usually on a Sunday, although more often sometimes. So they earn a little bit of their keep, but certainly not all of it. And then the wild animal project really just spun off from that, with people bringing us injured monkeys, and the local police actually brought us in a big contingent of parakeets that they had confiscated from being illegally traded. And usually they take confiscated animals to the local zoo, but for some reason the zoo couldn't take these birds, so they'd heard of us. So we got them, and that was years and years and years ago. We still have most of those birds, actually, with us now. We don't, some of the wild animals we can't release because they're either too tame or they are really popular as pets, and they would be almost immediately caught again and kept on short chains often. I hate to see animals in cages. We try really hard to give them big, interesting cages. They always have company. I hate having a wild animal on its own. Basically we do our best within very limited resources. And if we get an animal come in, which we do maybe once a month or something, the last one was actually an anteater, a beautiful animal about this big. And they have very long snouts. And they're just stunning animals. And this, we had the vet check her over. She was in really good health. She'd been brought in by somebody who had apparently found her on his land. And so he brought her to us. So we immediately took her up to our nature reserve and released her. We don't have a zoo here or anything like that. So we've released a lot of wild animals in our nature reserve now, which is a great space for them to... It's 140 acres, más o menos. So it's quite a good space for animals to survive.